And hello, good people of the internet. This is Tommy Kelly, and this is, of course, the Tommy Kelly podcast. And welcome you all to this episode. This week I've been extremely busy, I have to say. I have many things going on in my life, and today was no exception. Over the weekend, my brother-in-law got married, and I was doing the photography for it, and I've been working on editing the photos this morning, which is it's a lot of work, a lot of photos taken at a wedding. I'm also trying to get together the next section of the journey, which is will be going up later this week, and I'm mostly there, but there's still a fair bit to do in that. I had to get some videos together for every week in the 40 Servants Facebook group. We pick a servant and we talk about it. So this week it's the Carnal. So there's a new video of me talking about the Carnal put up on YouTube today, and then there's certain other things that I have to do around that on the website. So while it probably doesn't seem like it's an awful lot to do, it is an awful lot to do. So I've got to the podcast section of my day slightly later than I was hoping for, but that is how it goes. So what I want to talk about in this episode is kind of talk around the idea of me not really doing an awful lot of magic these days, and why that is, what's my thoughts behind it, and what do I think it means. So let's get into that. Very recently on YouTube, in one of the YouTube comments, some Satanist dude, well, I assume he's a Satanist dude because his channel is full of him reading Anton LaVey books, which is cool in its sense. So this Satanist dude was giving out about my podcast, said that I don't stick to the point, or I just yap on, and I should relabel all my podcasts and call them Jabbercast or something like that. And in fairness to him, he's probably right, but that is the nature of this podcast. I go all over the place and I don't have a structure. I try to get some sort of point to it, but you also need a title to your podcast to separate them and distinguish them from other podcasts you may have done over the years, and or you could just number them, I suppose. But yeah, so I'm going to go with the most clickbait title I can possibly think of for this one, along the lines of something of Why I Quit Magick or some other sensationalist title. So it's not quite the case. What I want to talk about is, though, that I'm not doing an awful lot of magic compared to what I used to do. Particularly is what I'm on about. It's not that I've given up magic in totality, because how I approach the world, how I approach art, is all being informed by magic and that kind of thought and thinking. So I can't escape from that kind of magical thinking, as Lionel Schnell would put it. And hundreds of other millions of people, not hundreds of millions, a lot of other people as well. On my Facebook, I recently said that this year I was going to try to approach things more from a new age kind of sense than a magical or occult sense. And I've said this a number of times since the beginning of the year, but this one seems to have caught on. It must have got into the Facebook algorithms, and people actually seen it, which is interesting because it's the first time I've posted in a long while where I didn't add a picture or a link or something, and because I assumed that it would just, to add a picture or a link or something makes it, it seems to make Facebook want to show it to people more. Or maybe people see, if you have a picture on your post rather than just text when you're scrolling through, people can, are more likely to see it with the picture than just text. But anyway, this is no picture and all that. And I would like to sensationalize this and go, I got an awful backlash. And of course it didn't. It's not a backlash, because most of my people who interact with me on Facebook are actually, not mental. Although there was some sort of pushback, if you want, on some kind of thing. And I think the main thing why that is because the progression is meant to be the other way. You're meant to start off in New Age and go towards the occult. And that's kind of deemed as the intelligent progression, the way things are and all of that kind of thing. That New Age is kind of starter school, or, you could dip your toes in the water of these ideas, and then you graduate to the more mature and more real, if you want, or the more educated systems of the occult and stuff like that. And there's a lot of truth in that, I can see, but my kind of thing is why I want to go back to the New Age is because if it's a case that I have that embedded in my mind, that kind of view that it's kind of New Agey is your preschool or your primary school, and then you move up into real school with the occult and stuff like that. I don't know. Is that true? Is that actually true? Is it that I just think that because I've been told that, or I've said before that a lot of the law of attraction stuff works as well, if not better, at times than sigils or chaos magic do. So is that true? Is the occult and chaos magic, is it a more advanced, more realistic, more useful way of looking at things? And I don't know the answer to that. I suspect it probably is, but I want to go back and look at these New Age things to see if I am throwing out any good tech or any good ideas or any sort of usefulness that I may have just ignored or put to one side, or just been kind of, what's the word, prejudice against because it's New Age. Like, could Marianne Williamson tell me something? Could Neil Donald Walsh, who I did spend some time reading Neil Donald Walsh, and I don't particularly like, there's something off about him that I didn't like. But go back and let's have a look at these people again from new perspective, from the new eyes, having spent so long in the occult and chaos magic, and see if there's anything worth, but maybe it is true that there's nothing new there. But there might be. So the first book I read or I listened to, the audiobook, was A Return to Love by Marianne Williamson, who's kind of talks an awful lot about Course in Miracles. And there is that famous quote that's usually attributed to Nelson Mandela, which is it Nelson Mandela? Let's say it is. That, it's not that we are afraid that we are such crap people, it's we are afraid that we are awesome people. That's very badly butchering and paraphrasing it. But it's actually Marianne Williamson's quote from this book. It's just, he said it in a speech, and it's that people have, just decided, or not decided, people just thought he came up with it. And I've seen it in posters and him, but it's actually her quote. And yeah, I enjoyed it. It's, it's like, I gave it to my mum, the book, years ago. It's not the first time I've read the book. And she enjoyed it too, but just says, why did it have to bring the Jesus and the religion stuff into it? The ideas are good. And I totally get that. It's, the Course in Miracles is kind of a Christian form of Buddhism in many ways, but it's an interesting book that I've never managed to finish because it's so heavy and it's so humorless and dry, and that it's a book. It kind of reminds me a lot of like the Alice Bailey books in the tone of it as well, not necessarily content, but the tone. And it's it's just something I know more from other people having talked about, and I guarantee you most people who talk about Course in Miracles is from having not read it, but by other people talking about it, or other books that refer to it and stuff like that, because it's tough going. Now there is a part of it at the end where you dwell on a thought every day, or you do like an exercise every day, which I know some people who have gone through that and got good kind of feedback, and they've learned a lot from it. It starts off like with nothing in this room, that the room you're in means anything, kind of pointing out that everything that we have around us only has meaning because we give it to it. And it continues on like that's all kind of mind game, not mind games, because that's kind of demoting it a bit what it's doing. It's all kind of thought ideas that you can kind of move around, thought experiments, whatever. I assume they think is the truth, though. Just hold on 1 second to close the door because Riggs is going insane. Riggs is my cat, in case you don't know. So that's kind of the next one I'm going to do is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, or Toole, or whatever way you pronounce that. I've never read that before. So I know nothing about it other than it is the most successful New Age book of all time, I think. Or he is definitely the most successful author or whatever. I've seen some interviews with him, and he has weird kind of hard to understand accent, and he is narrating this book, so perhaps that would be an issue, but I doubt it. I can usually get through those sort of things. But it just brought up the whole thing of not really I haven't been doing magic, and this New Age thing is kind of trying to kickstart myself into doing it a bit more and approaching it a bit more. Now, I am doing a lot of magic in the sense of I'm doing the journey and the self-discovery thing. The journey, for those who don't know, is a thing that we're doing over on my Patreon, which is a year-long meditative shadow working using servitors. And so there's definitely a lot of that going on, and meditation and stuff. But I couldn't tell you the last time I've done a sigil. I could absolutely tell you the last time I did sigil, it was last week. It was the sigil for the next episode. But I don't, the sigil in the sense of me trying to, you know, the shoal of sigils, or trying to enact some change rather than a service or sigil. I really don't know. It was probably sometime during the RuneSoup Gordon White's course in sigils, which was this time last year. So it's probably with any year. Um, and like I haven't invoked, done any of that. I definitely do daily affirmations at the beginning of the day as part of the journey. But that's about it. Most of the magic, if you want, in a sense, is introspection and stuff like that. And one of the reasons why I think I'm not doing it is because my life is kind of okay. It's on track, and an awful lot of magic gets done when things are falling apart, or like most money magic is done at the end of the month when bills are due. Strangely enough, so a lot of magic is emergency magic. And my life, I've tried my best to try and get it to so that it's not a hot mess, that it is a bit more stable and balanced, and that if something happens, that might, like if there's some kind of, I don't know, you get a, like there's something wrong with the car and you have to get it fixed, and there's money for that you don't fall apart. Your life doesn't fall apart because of that. And at times that would have happened, like say there was some emergency, or and I wouldn't have had the money put aside, or just to fall back, and I wouldn't have had things where systems that were in place that if something went wrong, that things would still survive, and I do have like those kind of safeguards in place, that if something catastrophic happens, my life is going to fall apart. That's as simple as that. But nothing like on the mundane level of day-to-day life being shitty, and like cars, or a window breaks, or I won't go through a list of things. I feel that I may attract that by just talking it out loud. Touching all the wood around me, and what it is an IKEA table. Is that actually wood? Not so sure. I will touch other wood, because I am superstitious when it comes to things like this, even though I would claim I am not. And even I've noticed ardent atheists touching wood. So it's an interesting. I think the whole touching wood thing is more that it does feel that if you say something that it encourages it to happen, but it's also, you don't want to be laughed at going, you shouldn't have said that. So there's an element of trying to break the jinx of it, which is interesting. So where was I? I was talking about why did I break my train of thought? So yeah, things in place, my life, better position than I was, okay with all of those things. So I kind of try as much as possible, like to pay bills ahead of time, so that when it gets to the time that the bills to be needed, there's no emergency magic needed. There's no kind of panic going on. So there's that, which kind of points to the fact that I probably used magic for that kind of things more than I was aware, because as soon as that kind of became a bit more balanced, my life, when I started actively trying to get that together, is when magic's slowed down, kind of thing. So that's interesting. Another reason why I don't say do a lot of sigil shows or a lot of sigils or working things or whatever, is that I don't know what I want. Like there's not, like I see people and they're like doing sigils all the time and all that, and I'm just like genuinely think, what? I can't think of enough things that I would want or need or like to do that amount of magic, or that amount of change. And it probably comes down to that I don't really like change. I like status quo. I like, I couldn't say I like being in a rut. It's not what I mean. I like, what's the other thing? Routine. Interesting. And I like all that sort of thing. And I like kind of new things coming into that and whatever. And you sort of, you don't get stagnant, and you don't, don't get bored or whatever. But I don't like if you're talking about the 47s, the adventurer is not someone I would hang around with much, because I don't really like that type of energy. And I know some people do and thrive on it. I don't. It stresses me, it panics me, it makes me anxious, which is fine. But I also obviously do need some sort of challenge or new things or fresh input and all that. So there's that. So I don't have that many things that I want to change, because I like status quo. I like things being around. And then I'm thinking I could also probably do things for, because I've talked about before, where I've joined this photography club, and we have monthly competitions. And there's probably an awful lot of sigils and magic I could do around that, where I could, try to be more, creative, or, try to tip the judge in to like my stuff and all that. And I don't do that. And this opened a whole spectrum of introspection for me when I kind of looked at that. And the reason why I don't do it is because it's close in my head to cheating, and it's not. Cheating is the absolutely wrong word for this. And what it is that I do these things. I do 90% of my creative kind of outlet or push is to try and see what I can do, what I'm capable of like that. The prize is for me to do it rather than for it to happen. So like I've talked before about which is more important, the artist or the art, the end result. And as a creator, for me, the artist me is more important than the art in a kind of sense that I'll explain. That if I don't like collaborations, working with other people, mostly because I'm a control freak and an egomaniac, but also because I find that I don't feel part of it. It doesn't feel like I'm expressing myself. Even if I have equal say in the whole thing, and I very seldom have had equal say, only because I tend to just kind of acquiesce to people. And that's terrible because very quickly I give up on trying to have any sort of creative outlet or expression through collaborations, and then I just kind of let the other person take over, and then you just become the art monkey or the writing monkey or whatever I happen to be doing for it, and then resentful and bitter towards collaborations. But it's because even if I wrote a new comic, and it was written by someone and I drew it, or I wrote it and they drew it, whatever, and it came out at the end and it was a huge success. There'd be part of me that would feel that as a failure because I didn't do it all. Even though obviously there's a part of me that'd be delighted, the success and all that. And it's because I'm trying as Tommy Kelly to express myself and become better. And through collaboration, it's kind of a watering down or a dilution of that, in that I haven't really achieved it. That I wasn't able to do it myself, which is crap. I understand in many ways, but it's also it's something I'm okay with, because I'm trying to achieve things for myself. And it was something that people couldn't really get when I was heavy into the comics, and we were, I'd be talking to other creators and be trying to do stuff with me, and I was like so against it, whatever, and very rarely did it. And they were going, but it would be really good, and it would be, in a sense, it'd be better than what you're doing, and it probably would be better than what I'm doing. Or what I did myself, and I probably could have created good things, but that is not my reason for creating, in a sense, it's not to create a great piece of art. It's for me to have created a great piece of art. And which is why that if, say, I did Magick to do well in the competitions, the monthly competition, the photography, I would feel kind of cheated, because it feels in some sense like it's a collaboration or there's some sort of other agency involved in it, and that I haven't really, say I win all the awards, but I haven't really, because it wasn't just me involved in it. Like it was me plus the magic, and I wouldn't have been able to achieve that on my own, even though, yes, magic and all that is possibly just all in your head and not woo-woo at all. That aside. So I find that interesting, and the bit of clarity on that's why I wouldn't use magic to kind of be a better artist. I can kind of go back a bit and answer that I obviously do use magic because as I said, my approach is a magical approach to creativity and to art. So there is that, but it still feels like I am doing it. Even at the points where my main thing about writing or about doing stuff is to try and get myself out of the way of things, so to let the creativity go through. But it still feels me doing that rather than someone else or some sort of magical or spirit, demon, angel, whatever you have you. So that's interesting that I have that, even though as well, excuse me while I have some coffee, I've, my graphic novel is a big magical work, but it's me doing it, me trying to affect change on the whole of reality. So apart from all that kind of thing, where I probably could go down that kind of road of really bumping up the magic in my creativity, and don't, because of trying to be the person who, be all things. there's a part of me that kind of, to address the sensationalist headline of this podcast, there's a part of me that has kind of quit magic, or doesn't think it's real, and or not real. Yeah, that doesn't think it's real. It's obviously real in the sense that I think it's real, so therefore it's real. But I don't think it's objectively real, and that's kind of changed in the sense that I kind of was looking at magic and spirituality and all of these things as looking for the objective capital T truth that we've talked about, and finding that it possibly, probably, is only subjective small t truth. And when I kind of got to that thing, and it was kind of more seen as more psychological, in a more Jungian sense of archetypes and ideas rather than woo woo, I kind of, that whole thing, I heard this from Gordon White. That may not have been where it originally comes from. That whole notion of the re-enchantment of the world, and that thing I've talked about before, that Ant LaVey, as part of his rules, is that if you get to do something by magic and you get it to acknowledge the magic, as part of that is a re-enchantment, so that you live in a magical universe and all that. When you stop seeing it as a magical universe and you stop trying to re-enchant it, and you see it more in psychological terms, Jungian terms, or even, you listen to enough Jordan Peterson, and the way he talks about chaos as potential and the unknown, and order as the thing that you do from chaos and all that, and you can kind of see it more as a psychological or a mind or even an intellectual thing than a woo-woo thing. It does take the enchantment slightly out of it. And I suspect that this is just a pattern within me, that you have that thought, and that this thing is mentioned a lot, that when you first get into magic, you're really good at it. Most people are really good at it very quickly, and then that stops very quickly. And where it is that I'm not going to get the term right, but it's, you start off being unconsciously unaware that you're doing it wrong, but you're still getting results, and then you become consciously aware of how wrong you're doing it, and then the results go away because you've become aware of all the faults and all that kind of things. That's part of the reason why, that whole thing of beginner's luck and all of that kind of thing. So there's definitely probably patterns or cyclical reasons for going for heavy into magic to not. And also, I suppose it's the pattern of, because I'm doing a lot of introspection and trying to intellectually sort things out in my head, that I probably now have a bit more intellectual approach to life in general because of that, even though the process by which I'm doing that, which is the journey, is a magical approach. So there's all of that. The downside of it all, even though I seem okay with it mostly, is that I do feel that kind of some of the magic, not in the magic, like kind of the fun, or the what's the word, the enchantment of the world is gone, and the colors have kind of toned down a bit. The potential is kind of not in a potential of creative, but in potential of woo-woo-ness. The level of woo-woo-ness has definitely decreased massively in my life, where I don't feel there's way less sinks, there's way less universal winks, there's way less kind of, but of course that would happen, way less kind of things that you would normally point to that would, it's almost as if by the process of doing and approaching the life from a non-magical life, which, I mean, this makes sense going by what we've talked about, or I've talked at you about before. By doing that, I have disenchanted the world, and the universe, and everything after has become less magical because of that. And I'm okay with it now because I feel this may be a cycle or a pattern or just something I'm going through. But it will probably be something that will really get me and bug me if it continues indefinitely, because I enjoyed the feeling of magic in the air and the enchantment and that, and I kind of feel closed off a bit, as if that there's a door closed, and there's definitely a big word would be connection, and a lack thereof of any sort of spiritual connection. I don't feel that at all, and I definitely did feel it at one time, like massively. I felt that I was closer to whatever it was I was looking for than I am now. But we've all known a million stories. We all know the different things that the further or the closer you get, the further away it feels. And, that you have to go through these things to find out, you have to, that whole thing of the alchemist, like where you have to travel the world to find out the place that you're meant to be is where you started. And I assume there's some sort of element to that. And also there's probably all that thing of cutting back all the dross and all the terrible, stupid things that you've added into these things, and come back to the thing that is the essential bit of these things, without the baggage or whatever. So this kind of drive towards New Age might be that I have some sort of foundational idea that is wrong, and that I need to go back in some way to go forward. It's so fucking cliched, all these things, but it's as I say, these podcasts I do to try and sort things out in my mind, and this is exactly what's happening. But cliches are cliches because they're true. I mean, that's the whole point of them. So it's interesting. I still have a lot to think in this out, and obviously I have to sort out and kind of all that. Maybe it does end up with me not being into magic or having a completely different approach. Maybe it is my lack of interest in doing magic is because it's not maybe it isn't real, and I'm realizing it and being okay with it, rather than stages where I thought it isn't real and really wanting it to be real. But I also know it is real in the subjective view of it. Like magic is real because I believe it's real, and I can use it as a useful tool, whether or not it's woo-woo. I just may not care anymore or believe that there is a woo-woo element to it, which is interesting. I will not know for some length of time. It'll be something that'll become clear in the future. But I miss that connection thing. I miss that sort of, that feeling of, I don't know, being on the precipice of, eternity, and being well, that's, a feeling that you're part of it all, of the oneness, the unity, that thing, which I don't have. So, yeah, why I'm not doing magic, why I have quit magic. There you go. So that was the Tommy Kelly podcast, and that was sensational title on clickbait extraordinaire, why I have quit magic. But yeah, it's interesting. I would be interested to hear people's feedback on it, if they've gone through patterns of this, or if it's something that, as I suspect, is cyclical, and you do return with fresh and new approaches to the same thing, and you can't go further until you go back and all that kind of stuff. So if you would like to hear more of this jabbercasting, then you can go to adventuresinwooboo.com, and there you will see the whole podcast page. All of them are there in a nice little kind of applet window, or you can get them on YouTube, they're on iTunes, you can get them on Pocket Casts, you can pretty much Stitcher, all of these places that have podcasts, you can get them. I'm working on it being on Spotify, which I've never really doing podcasts. I filled in some forms, so hopefully soon, if you are interested in listening to podcasts on Spotify, someday we will be there. If you would like to help me out, there is a number of ways, and I don't push this sort of stuff enough, and I probably should. Liking and sharing and leaving comments and comments. Leave comics if you want, but leaving comments would be better. All really help, all in this big algorithmic thing that we are involved in now in social media. So the thumbs up on YouTube is really helpful. Liking it, sharing it on Facebook and Twitter, or any of those probably newfangled social medias that I know nothing about. All really good and really helpful. And even going to SoundCloud and liking it, or leaving an iTunes review, or any of these things, really helps out and gets the word out there on that kind of thing. If you want to help me in even more giving sense, and be a much better person, and be seen as a very charitable person in the eyes of God, and probably guarantee you a place in heaven, would be to go to my Patreon and send me some money every month, so I can continue to do these things. Not continue to do, actually, to improve all of these things. That's basically what the Patreon was set up, so that I can become much better at doing these things in many ways. And to get to the Patreon, you can go to tommykelly.com, which is TOMMIE, Kelly with KELLY, and that brings you to the Patreon page. And there's a number of different rewards where you can get my comics, my books, the digital deck. You can sign up and get involved in the Journey thing, which is the shadow year-long meditative thing, which is going really well. And you can check all that out. Other than that, you can go to the YouTube channel, you can go to Adventures from Woo itself, the blog. There's loads of stuff there that you can read and watch and listen to, and look at my art, my photography, and all of those things. I'm all over the Flickrs, the 500pxs, the Instagrams, all the places. So if you could like everything, share everything, and send me all the money, that would be good. That would be optimal for everyone involved, I think. So have a great week, people of the internet. I hope that your life is really enchanted and full of magic, and that you're tremendously happy, and that you're being treated well by all those around you, and that you're learning deep and powerful, insightful truths about yourself, so that tomorrow you go into the world much better prepared and a much better person. So I'll talk to you all next week. Be well.